Conrad, let's dive into this giant pile of news.
I wasn't sure how you're going to end that sentence. Giant pile of news. So the big thing that we were talking about last time that I still think is interesting is the Google Helpful Content algorithm. My experience with our clients, I suspect you are seeing the same, is a bit of a yawner in terms of any changes. Is that accurate for you?
Yes, it's a big to do about nothing. I don't want to turn this into a negative rant, but this is what the SEO industry does. This is what the SEO industry does. Google, by the way, Google's doing this too. They know exactly what they're doing as well. So Google has this fancy algorithm, all this stuff going on to try to sort through the mess that the web is. And Google, the actual search engineers, they make updates to the algorithm and to make the results better, What better is, we'll let the search engineers decide, or now the AI decide. But I digress. Google announces, hey, we made an update. If you have unhelpful content on your site, this classifier might make it not rank as well. And of course, the SEO industry, because this is how they make their money, goes out and says, oh, new update from Google. You better hire us to fix it. Your content's, everything's broken. Everything's bad. Your site's going to disappear from search results. You better hire us. And then, with some exceptions, with some notable exceptions, not much happens. And guess what? The stuff that when it does happen, it happens on ginormous websites, not small law firm websites, and not the local pack. Right, it might be like your old blog posts or your keyword stuff, this or the million plurals. Like that's unhelpful. Maybe some of that gets filtered. But to your point, Conrad, we haven't seen a ton. Most major people who spend their days staring at Search Console and Google Analytics haven't seen a ton. They did some. I think Barry Schwartz at Roundtable did a survey and said about 20% of people saw something happen. And it's still rolling out, so, it's still too early to even talk about this. But what is the helpful content update, Conrad?
Well, so very quickly, it is a site-wide adjustment based on how much what Google considers helpful content. And they're calling it helpful content to make it sound innocuous, and they're not calling it a penalty specifically to make it not sound, to make it sound innocuous. The interesting thing for me is that they talked about this so much. They named it ahead of time. And I'm going to give a counterpoint to the nothing's happening, a counterpoint perspective on this. Because all of the signals suggest that this will be a big deal. The last time when Panda rolled out, it hit something like 22% of the web. If you have a massive site, and because it's site-wide, this is important. If you have a very large volume of pages on your website, and a lot of them are garbage, it will actually have a negative impact on your good content, right? And that's what it means by site-wide algo update. There is a great post. Joy Hawkins brought this to my attention this morning. It's a great post by Marie Haynes. And what she writes about is her expectation that this, even though nothing really big is going on right now, she says the last time there was a major rollout, the changes happened at the end of the rollout. So the variability in search results didn't happen until the very end of the rollout. And her hypothesis is that it's going to happen again. I think that is highly possible. But we'll see, right? Like she could be wrong. This is just a kind of her theoretical perspective. I tend to agree with her because Google has made such a big deal of it, which is out of the ordinary for how they typically operate. All right.
So let's say you and Dr. Haynes are right. Then what would you do? What do you do? What are you telling small law firm website clients to do to their websites to prepare for the great helpful content update?
Don't do anything. Henny penny. The sky's not falling. And we don't know if it's falling until you've got at least 2 weeks of data post update. So you need to sit tight and strap in and watch the data, right? So none of this, like Guy and Conrad prognosticating and disagreeing over this, who cares? None of it matters. What really matters is how your traffic changes, how your converting traffic changes, if your traffic changes, right? And so you need to sit and wait until you've got enough data to actually make that.
And by the way, even with that data, there are hundreds of other updates going on at Google that they don't even talk about. And so try to distinguish between the helpful content update and the hundreds of other algorithm updates that might be causing the same problem.
And finally, we will move on from Google helpful content. The smaller your website traffic is, the less scientific, this is just basic statistics, but the smaller your website traffic is, the less scientific any study is going to be because you simply lack the sample size to ascertain whether or not your site is getting hit or if it's just natural variability in behavior. So
statistical significance, such a pain.
My
data scarcity.
I try not to talk about my kids too much, but my oldest kid is taking AP Stats in high school, and that makes me very happy. It's one of, I think, the best classes you could take in high school to prepare you for real life. Okay, moving on.
Best tip.
Hey, MyCase, document automation and accounting. What's going on with MyCase, Guy?
Well, the race to be the platform operating system universe, whatever, metaverse, if you want to go there, whatever you want to call it, for legal is on, and MyCase is definitely in that fight. And so they've integrated their document automation and accounting, similar to what Clio is doing and some of these other major platforms. But they want it to be one-stop shop, right? Like run your firm. It's your whole firm, payments, accounting, intake, whole consumer journey right there in that app. So good to see more of this.
And not a surprise, right? Like people are looking, the complexity of all these different systems is difficult. So
who wants to open two different systems?
Yeah, zero, right?
Not me.
Speaking of the MyCases of the world, Clio conference is coming up in October. We've got the CRISP Summit, November 2 and 3. I also noted like there's some crazy people showing up at conferences. Obama is going to HubSpot's Inbound. He's the keynote at HubSpot's Inbound. I will confess, I did actually apply to speak at HubSpot's Inbound conference, probably 90% for the slight opportunity to actually meet Barack. That would be super cool.
Well, they got to bring Obama in because no one wants to go to conferences anymore. And so...
Well, that's an interesting thing. We're seeing a really interesting shift in the conferences. Is those in-person conferences, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, Guy, you were the kiss of death for Amazon Medicine. It was canceled before our episode. We talked about it last session. Amazon Medicine. We talked about whether or not that is a hint that Amazon might be prognosticating or thinking about or toying with the legal industry. And as soon as before the episode went live, they had canceled it. So there's an article in the Washington Post about Amazon Medicine. Kiss of death, Guy, for Amazon Medicine.
Well, Bezos is a big LHLM guy. And so, when he's sitting there, he's just can't help himself. But interestingly, the Washington Post article that we'll cite is actually talking about how they are still very keen on doing health. So anyway, take a look, decide for yourself. I still think we know this. I mean, you worked at the company that was thinking like this many years ago.
Yeah.
But a site where you go for lawyers, right? And Amazon's a site where you go for everything. So, look, they're not there yet. There's a lot to do. But even if it's not Amazon, someone's going to be that.
Someone's there. It's already happening, right?
Yeah.
The different models. So that is...
Right.
And that's why we bring it up, because I think it's really important to think well outside our typical construct of what practicing law means in order to think about what the future looks like. Speaking of what the future looks like, you'll be able to delete your racist tweets in Twitter now by editing them. Twitter's opened up the editing feature, so you can erase your stupidity from the past, good or bad, Guy.
Do you have the edit functionality on your app? Do you even have Twitter? Are you on Twitter?
I used to be such a heavy Twitter operator,
tweeter,
and I have found honestly
you're TikTok only now.
You will find me nowhere on TikTok yet. Although I'm lurk, and we're going to talk about the importance of this. The lurking on these things is really, really important, right? Because there is so much to learn just by lurking. You don't have to engage, but lurking is. We're gonna get into the shiny object thing, but lurking on these different platforms is important. I'm Yeah, I do not have the Twitter edit functionality on my Twitter.
I don't either, and
I think they're maybe rolling it out to people who say stupid things all the time. Brought to you by the government.
I can't even get a blue check, so they don't care about me.
All right. You said TikTok. TikTok, there's a lot going on. I think, let me rephrase it differently. TikTok is really changing the way Google is thinking about how the next generation is finding information. There's a great TechCrunch article on this. We'll put this in the show notes. But Guy, can you talk about how the success of TikTok and Instagram is shaping, and Google's response to the success of TikTok and Instagram, but shaping the way younger generation is actually looking for information?
Yeah, the short version is that people are actually going to TikTok and Amazon to find like places to eat. I think that's like the big example. But the point is that the users are now using social platforms more in the context of search, right, and discovery. And it's funny. I don't know if you and I talked about it. I remember this conversation long ago, and Facebook was originally pushing like their search functionality. Which it never really was a thing because no one went there to do that. But now users are. So they're going and they want to see, they'd much rather see like somebody, one of their influencers or friend or somebody talking about with a video about the place, the food, all that kind of stuff, the ambiance. And so Google's like, wow, we're losing searchers to social platforms. We need to start thinking about how we can learn from TikTok and Instagram to make search results more visual and image-driven, video-driven. I think that's the gist.
And I'm going to come back to this lurking concept. You will not get this unless you start lurking and playing in some of these different platforms, because you will see it's so real when you're there, and it's reading it on TechCrunch is nice, but actually experiencing it is really important. Then we're going to talk about the new thing and how to approach that.
I got to. This is a show about bashing the legal profession. Usually, we say about lawyers, they're so slow to adopt this stuff. Something's changed. I don't know, something. Maybe lawyers like to dance or something, but there are lawyers all over TikTok and all over Instagram. Like, it's going out of style. And I'll tell you, it's not just agency idiots like us that are pushing them there, because a lot of them...
It's not agencies like us. The agencies don't get it.
They're taking this on themselves.
Yes.
I don't, maybe it's the performance aspect of it, but someone has convinced the legal profession to be on TikTok and Instagram.
Well, and
they're all over.
This is a pure supply and demand thing. I did a great Dean Blatchford out of Ottawa. He's a tax lawyer out of Ottawa. I did a great session with him the other day, and he said, he was talking about the amount of time that he puts into his charity event and how that is then kind of leveraging online to make that really, really successful. And he literally said, I don't spend money on Google ads. I do this instead, and it's so much more effective. And what's happened is it's pure supply and demand. Google ads, so expensive. Everyone's playing in that game. You've got to find blue ocean strategies for that. SEO, God help you if you are starting out, right? And so people are looking for different resources that are going to drive business. And there is so much out there that is not, and you and I both started as SEOs, but there's so much out there that is not SEO and Google ads. And so people are finding that. It's just basic economics.
Money makes it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Make a world go round. Money makes a world go round.